I've been at Metro Hope for 6 months. I am the family program assistant. I help the moms learn how to parent sober, and then I work with the children in the daycare here that we have on site. I received an email from my husband's aunt, and I sent over a resume online, and then the next day, or that same day, I got a phone call for an interview. Came in the next day for an interview and got hired the day after that, so it was really quick. It was God ordained, you could say. Yeah. Family history plays a big part in addiction. If you have other family members, that example kind of gets passed down, and then any type of past trauma, any type of PTSD, where the individual is trying to forget or not remember or not deal with an event, a traumatic event that happened in their life, they will use in order to kind of push that back and keep it away from themselves. Both have very physical detriments on the consumer. They can affect your brain, they can affect your liver, they can affect your heart. Alcohol and drugs they also really affect the whole family. You come in here, we take families here, and so you really see how addiction has affected both parents and children, and how just socially and emotionally, these families have a really hard time. I think that alcohol is the same regardless. I mean, if you're going to abuse alcohol, you're going to have negative effects on the body and the brain. If you're going to abuse drugs, any kind of drug, I mean, illicit drugs like marijuana, heroin, methamphetamines, narcotics, those are bad. I think that we forget to name the barbiturates, the painkillers that you would receive from the doctor. Those are a very common thing. Those are coming more to the forefront now. Also, like, for example, like Adderall, that's something that you would prescribe for someone with ADHD. That one goes on the market and it sells very high on the street, unfortunately. And then there's even a new one. There was just researched this crocodilo, which is something that's started in Russia, and it's now here in the US, and it's a form of poor man's heroin, and it can kill you within a year because it will rot your body to pieces. I think it's heartbreaking. I'm personally a child of an alcoholic, and I know what a lot of these kids have gone through here, and I know a lot of these moms have gone through here. So when I first meet them, we handle them with kid gloves, and addiction is a really tricky disease, and it's an illness that needs to be dealt with at the heart of the matter rather than just saying stop using. You have to really get to what caused them to use in the first place and make them confront that and deal with that. And usually in therapy and with counseling and work like that, usually when you can get to the heart of the matter of why they used, it opens the door. It really is the gateway to open up that door to get them to stop using. It helps them confront it and deal with it and then move on in a sober life. So political views aside, we treat people here for marijuana addiction, and what we see a lot is that it kind of just leaves the person very listless. It atrophies the brain. They have trouble comprehending, remembering things. They have kind of leaves them just very listless and lazy, not wanting to move forward. And THC, the leading component, the leading chemical in marijuana that makes the person high, it stays in the body for roughly up to 6 months, depending upon the size of the person. So we see the effects of that lasting a lot longer, and it takes a much longer time to kind of recover and get that healthy brain activity back. So I think it's just as dangerous as alcohol, although alcohol can do the same kind of damage to a brain, and alcoholics typically, if they're severe enough, can die from liver failure. So, I mean, they're both equally just as bad, regardless of what kind of illnesses that you get from them. I think it might cause a decrease in arrests for it, but I don't know that the addiction problem with it will go away. I think that the same amount of people that have been using before will be more free to use. There might be less stigma with it, the stigma that it's a bad thing. I think that might possibly go away. I don't necessarily agree that marijuana should be legalized for everyone. I think in maybe some extreme medical cases it could be legalized for that, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say what could happen if it still isn't, legalized everywhere. We don't really know the effects, and we don't really of what will happen to people and what will happen to the country regardless. Mr. Obama is only the president of the United States, not to downplay his job, but he's not a doctor, he's not a board certified physician, he's not an addiction specialist. He's speaking from his own personal experience with drug and alcohol use. He hasn't necessarily worked in a recovery center to see the devastating effects that drugs and alcohol leave on a family or on an individual. I think any form of substance abuse has negative effects on the family and the body. And there are theories, a use aside, there are theories that occasionally a glass of red wine is good for the heart. And if you're going to have alcohol, definitely moderate, things like that. But as far as illicit drugs that are illegal, that are purposefully illegal, and abuse of medical prescriptions, that kind of stuff, it's definitely not a good thing. It's definitely bad. I don't think that it's okay to downplay the effects of that, because for other people the effects can be much more serious than what he's experienced. I think that drugs and alcohol are equally just as dangerous, because they all can have a negative, when abused, they can all have a very negative effect on your body. Especially when it comes to the illicit drugs like heroin and amphetamines and that kind of stuff. It's just not healthy to have that stuff in your body. It's illegal for a reason. So I guess with that, if you're gonna partake in drinking alcohol, you should, drink responsibly. Don't drink underage. Stay away from drugs. It's just not worth it. From what I see here and what I deal with every day with people, it's not worth it.
I wanted to thank you for allowing me to volunteer at Metro Hope and for assisting me with my passion project.
You're welcome.